This is Mission Qualfon, a monthly podcast that takes you inside the workings of our company, but not just the ins and outs of business. We look at the ideas and insights that make Qualfon truly unique. As a company, we are committed to being the best and making each person's life better. Join us as we get to know and learn from people from across the organization. What's their story? What have they learned? And how do they live out Qualfon's mission? Welcome to Mission Qualfon. Hello and welcome back to Mission Qualfon. I'm Jeremy Lennon and I'm here with my partner Marisol Sanchez.
Hey Jeremy, how are you? Can you believe we're on episode 3?
Episode 3. This is exciting. I would love if you could share a bit about your podcast history, because this is something I'm kind of new to this, but you have a background. And I just have to say, Marisol was really the impetus of this project. And so I would love for you to share kind of your background in podcasting, if you don't mind.
I mentioned it was kind of a secret. It was something I did as a hobby. It was not something I did in my corporate life. If you listen to episode 1 with Mike, I started in operations, call center. Actually, I started as an agent, back in high school. So my whole career, my corporate career has been in corporate structure. Mm-hmm. And later in my career, helped start a call center where I live and so on and so on. Long story short, I got divorced. And I'm just going to tell you the truth. I was actually going to therapy and my therapist was like, this is about 2014. Mm-hmm. My therapist was like, you need a hobby. You need something to entertain you, keep you busy, learn skills. I wasn't working at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I loved podcasts at the time. And this is when the market share was only 20% of, at least here in the States, even knew what a podcast was. Right. So it was when I say it was a secret, it was a secret. Mm-hmm. It was just a secret little hobby, something I wanted to learn and do. And I started one, I started a second one, and the one that actually took off was shockingly a sports podcast. Mm-hmm. I had my youngest child was a travel cheerleader, and I realized I just had an opportunity because there was no podcast for cheerleaders at the time, and we're mostly in our cars traveling to competitions for the season. So I was like, oh, this is a golden opportunity. And I took it, and it was a huge commercial success. And I think it's had over 100,000 downloads. And
wow,
yeah, it was kind of fun. It was a lot of fun, but it wasn't something I put on my LinkedIn profile. Right. It wasn't something I really, I didn't share it with people. I didn't identify as a podcaster. Again, it was just a little hobby mm-hmm. that I like to do. And when I came back to work, almost 2 years now at Qualfon, I never thought about it. It did not enter my mind that a corporate entity should have a podcast, mm-hmm. much less, BPO call center. And I know we do so much more than that, but with my perspective, that's what it wouldn't have been a conclusion I would have come to. But it was really, truly learning all the things that Qualfon does, that I was like, it's begging for a podcast. So when I was putting this together, the proposal for this, everyone immediately was like, you have to work with Jeremy.
You need something to do.
No, you have enough to do. As someone who tries to schedule with you, you're good. But everyone was like, you've got to work with Jeremy, because you have radio background, right?
I do. That was my first real job right out of high school. I worked in radio, and I did that for about 10 years.
You had the voice for it.
Oh, well, thank you. I apparently didn't have enough of a voice for it to make it my full-on career for long. At some point, I decided I probably should make enough money to support my family, so I started to do different things. But yeah, I started there, and then, in fact, that's what brought me to Spokane. I live in Spokane, Washington, and in 1992, I came here for a radio job. Just through a bunch of events, I needed another job. I wasn't getting amount of hours I thought I would be getting at the radio station. And so I took my first call center job in 1992. And
the year I graduated high school.
Well, there you go. So I'm older than you. Yes. So I was doing both for a while, and finally it was mid 90s, 95, 96, I got out of radio and was full time then in contact center stuff. But I've always kind of kept my foot a little bit in the, I can't say radio, but the voiceover production side. And a lot of what I do in my current job at Qualfon is I still get to do a lot of this stuff. So when you came to me and asked about working with you on the podcast, I was super excited.
Just needs another way to highlight, how different we are than, it's not even within our industry, within any corporation. We have an owner of the company who has a mission, and we are all really passionate about this mission. And it just seemed like a natural evolution to do a podcast about Mission Qualfon.
We're obviously, we'd be lumped into that business category, but I don't really think of it because what we talk about, or what we hope to talk about, is things that are a little different than what you'd hear in a typical business podcast. And so that's what made me excited about the project. Is we weren't going to be talking about the typical business stuff. I mean, that comes up because we're a business, but the focus is really, like you said, about what makes us different from other businesses. So I really like that.
I mean, I love, in some of the interviews we've even talked about, the spirituality aspect, which, is in all our literature. It's not something we shy away from. We talked a little bit about it with Ian in the second episode, and there's episodes coming up where we dig a little deeper onto that subject. It's just something that when we use our mission statement, be your best, make people's lives better, they truly mean it.
Right. And
there's just so much about the company that a 30-minute conversation will do it so much justice that I'm excited. I'm excited for it. However this evolves, I'm in. I'm all in.
Yeah, and one thing too that I think, just for context, is you and I have had several interviews. We've got several interviews in the can, so they say, right? That are ready to go. So, for instance, our guest today is Kim Carr. This interview was way back, like the middle of January.
Yes, I think I was heading out to Summit.
Yes.
And we should probably reference what Summit is, because I think in the 2 podcasts that we've had already, we mention it, and our audience might not know what that is, but it's an annual meeting that occurs for Qualfon, and it lasts about 2 to 3 days.
It's in a different site.
Changes every year.
Yeah, different site every year.
There's a lot of presentations. There's prestigious awards handed out. It's quite an event, and this was actually my first year going. And I think when we recorded this, when I was heading out,
I believe so. This is the week before the summit.
Yeah.
So that's good. I wanted to just make sure we had that context and that folks knew a little bit more about what the summit is.
It's quite an event, and for me personally, it was very transformative.
With that, let's go ahead and go in and listen to our guest for this week, which is Kim Carr.
If I sound extra excited, it's because I'm heading out to Mexico City for Qualfon's 25th anniversary summit. So nice. This is a big event within our company, and it's my first time. I know that you've been previous years. Mm-hmm. I've never been. So honestly, I'm like, as a single mom, I'm ready to go and just
some time away. Will be nice.
I love my children, but I am very, very grateful to be able to get out of town for a little bit and get to meet people, Yep. I've worked with them for a year and a half, and I've never met 90% of the people I work with. So I'm super excited.
That's what it was for me, is all these people that had just been names in my email, or maybe they'd been on a conference call. It was so nice to meet people in person and, see people that are shorter than you expected or taller than you expected or whatever. It's great. You're going to have a great time.
I know that there's a special award, a very prestigious award handed out at Summit, and I believe you have been a recipient of that award, if I'm correct.
Well, thank you. Yes. There's the Shining Star Award that is awarded, and that's one of the key awards that's given out at the big dinner. They kind of have the final night. It's a nice ceremony. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to receive that award. I think it was 3 years ago. I was in San Antonio when we did the summit there, and it was awesome. It was great, and it was a complete surprise, and it was great. It was awesome. Yeah.
Well, I think this is a great segue to introduce our guest for this week's episode, because I believe she is also a recipient of this very prestigious award.
I think you're right.
I'd love to introduce Miss Kim Carr. Welcome, Kim.
Hi, Kim.
Hey, everyone. Good afternoon.
Now, Kim, you're one of the people I have not met in person. We've exchanged emails throughout the year, but I've not met you. But I have heard some amazing things about you. And I was so excited to have you on the podcast, specifically because you and I share something, which is both our careers in BPO started on the phones. I'm an original agent. I'm not going to date myself. It was a very long time ago.
You guys never want to date yourself.
But I believe you are currently a very valued director of Qualfon, but you started your career on the phones. Am I correct?
Yeah, I love the fact that many of the senior leaders at Qualfon have that similar story of starting off in a training class and then going on to the phones and speaking with customers. Jeremy, we don't date ourselves because it's the woman's code, but I'll just say that 3 years, half of my life will have been spent at Qualfon. So,
well, see, now I can figure it out, though, Kim. I'm doing the math in my head right now.
See, sometimes we give a little lure out there. But what I will say quickly, just to kind of, put my story into a quick recap, is started off on the phones through a lot of support and a lot of mentorship and training. I was able to move into a supervisor role, stayed in that position for quite a few years. And in 2009, a lady you've probably heard of before, Tracy Morin, gave me one of the biggest opportunities of my life. And that was moving into a quality manager position. What I found in quality is that's really where my passion was. And Qualfon gave me the opportunity to obtain my yellow and green belt Six Sigma certifications, which I think great and thankfully is now part of our Qualfon University platform, if I believe I understand correctly.
Correct.
And I think it's, it's so cool that having that education opportunity, I was able to move from quality manager to quality director, and then eventually moved into client relations director for our largest e-retailer client located in Seattle. They kind of have the world's best customer service, or drive to deliver the world's best customer experience. So it's been great for a quality gal to kind of take her roots of process improvement, customer satisfaction, and really learn more about the BPO industry, or overall just understanding of our environment through the client relations piece of it. So really have been able to not just move from a job, which is just over broke, into a career over Qualfon throughout the past 16 years here.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. And I love that we're having you on the podcast to share it, because I think it's inspiring to maybe any new employees who may listen to the podcast and are starting out, so that they could just have the seed that you could have a wonderful career future plan at Qualfon. I believe Qualfon has so many amazing, unique, I get very flustered trying to explain this, but that's really why I wanted to do a podcast, because there's so many layers to it. But one of the things that sets Qualfon apart, for example, is our CEO does the You Matter with Mike surveys. It's a survey that goes out to all the employees in the company. Many companies do that. It's not something unique. But what I personally, from my personal experience, within 20 plus years in the BPO industry, he really does care. And Qualfon really does care. And one of our latest questions was, does Qualfon promote my total vocation? Just the ability here for Jeremy and I to even do a podcast is part of what makes Qualfon unique. They're trusting us with something that we kind of do as a hobby with the company. And hearing your story just seems to reinforce that idea that Qualfon is just truly a unique company. So my next question for you, Kimberly, is having had this long tenure with Qualfon, having seen the evolution of Qualfon, it appears to me that your career has also evolved along with Qualfon. What have you experienced with Qualfon? What sets Qualfon apart from other corporations and companies and BPOs?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something that I think is telling in the employees that we have who, again, started off on the phone and are now in senior positions. So, just like you said, a lot of companies do the You Matter with Mike type of approach or employee surveys. But I think what the differentiating factor is with Qualfon is we execute on what the intent is of those practices. So You Matter with Mike isn't something that we just check box to get done. There's processes that happen in the back end, looking at each of the comments, creating actionable takeaways to help improve the employee and, the employee overall satisfaction, I think, is just amazing. And, it's interesting because when I look at Qualfon in 2004, it seems like we were still somewhat in our infancy. We were super hungry to be successful, but many of us were still trying to really get our wings in learning what was really required to be successful in the BPO realm. We were pretty small, being domestic at that time for the most part. And so many different layers, I think, were restricting us from really becoming one of the large players. And so what I've seen is that investment in the individuals at Qualfon have really helped scope the company to become one of the larger, more well-known players. Like I mentioned, the client I work with today, they are incredibly large. I think this peak, they were up to just under 90,000 associates across the globe. And the partner network handles around 60% of that business. And so it's always, I think, really cool. And it was eye-opening to me when I first joined this program to hear people say, oh, I've heard of Qualfon and you have this person or this person. I always knew that they would eventually move into a senior role. People who were once my supervisor become a site director, and then my mentor now being a senior vice president. It's really, I think, cool to see that Qualfon's grown, but they've grown in the right way through investing in people like us or others who are really passionate about living our mission, which again is being the best PPO and then making people's lives better.
I think, and Kim, you'll appreciate this because you're a quality person. You're a continuous improvement person. I was immediately impressed when I started working with our current mission team that, well, number one, I'm impressed that we have a mission team, right? Every company has a nice mission statement on the wall, but we actually have a team and organization around it and processes around it designed to help us live our mission. That blew my mind, seeing that kind of commitment to our mission. And so what you said really resonates with me in terms of us being committed to a mission, not just saying nice things, but actually putting processes in place to ensure that we're living our mission. And I think that's a real differentiator for Qualfon.
Yeah, it truly is. And I think it goes back to being able to fulfill total vocation too, because through having the processes, we're able to see what the outcome is. And again, really make sure that what individuals are saying are the actions and the initiatives that as a company we're striving and driving for. So I think, again, it's just something where unless you really are able to see and experience it, you don't understand, I think, the opportunities that are in front of you are at your fingertips. And that's why I really, really would guide and recommend everyone talks to their leader, their supervisor, their trainer, their ops manager about the opportunities that are in front of them. Like you mentioned, Jeremy, we have a missions team, and inside of that missions team, there are so many different opportunities, either for process improvement. If you're a data nerd like I am, we have Green Belt Six Sigma certification. There's micro degrees, and it's I think just so cool that at our fingertips you can move into a career like I've been able to, and I've done that debt free. I do not have college tuition expenses that I have to pay back, because I've been able to take the education and the opportunities in front of me. So when I'm asked, what my number one recommendation is for anyone looking to start at Qualfon, it would be talk to your supervisor about what opportunities are there. Firstly, do your best to be your best. And once you are your best, look at what you can do and create a career path. If you want to stay at Qualfon, great. If not, we have so many different diversifying tools that can help you get into your total vocation. And that, I think, Jeremy, is living our mission instead of just saying we want to make people's lives better. I've seen it happen time and time and time again, where Qualfon helps others truly move into what they're passionate about.
Kim, I have one last question. And I think because of your tenure with Qualfon, you'd be the perfect person to ask this of. Outside of Qualfon, when I'm at a social gathering, I'm with friends, and I'm trying to explain the uniqueness of Qualfon or why I'm so excited about my job or my career or who I work for, I get flustered. I can't properly explain, the company's consecration, its mission, all the things that I get really excited about. I don't have that elevator pitch, which is, again, part of the reason I'm so passionate about the podcast is we could share these stories. So my question to you is, having as much tenure, how do you describe to someone who doesn't work at Qualfon what makes us so different?
Yeah, it's something that really is difficult to describe. And I think the only way to really provide a true pitch is to know what's important for the individual. And that's what makes Qualfon so different, is we truly want to know what's important to individuals, not just an employee, but who we are when Marisol's in the office compared to when you're with your family and your children. What is it that drives you and that you're passionate about? I think that often at Qualfon, again, so many are unaware or don't take advantage of the opportunities that exist in front of them. And that's something that truly does separate us and I think makes us unique. When I first started at Qualfon at the age of 18, I was probably not quite as mature who I am today. And quite frankly, I don't know who I would be if I hadn't taken this journey and I hadn't met the people who became friends and eventually became family. And, some of my biggest supporters in life, just knowing those individuals and having the opportunity to have that level of family and friendship. I don't know if you get that in other places. And again, as far as the education aspect of it goes, I think sometimes maybe the word education can be misconstrued, but being able to develop your own skills and build upon who and how strong you are as an individual, I think is incredibly important. There's been times in my personal life where just being able to hold everything together, like you said, being a single mom, that's really hard. And that journey and that experience all happened to me while I was working here. And, having a company who cared enough for me as an individual to say, okay, Kim probably needs 2 extra weeks off because of all of the chaos, or, we're going to make sure that we're teaching her skills that make her a stronger leader that then I could take into my life, having to wear both hats, both as a mom and a dad, especially to an autistic daughter. Like, I don't know how much of that I would have been able to survive if it wasn't, again, just for the tools and education that I've been able to get from Qualfon. So again, you hear it a lot where employees are important. I think what I've been seeing in my 16 years with Qualfon and other experience with friends in different BPOs is the companies that stay around and grow are the ones who truly live that mission. And I think Qualfon's growth and overall story has shown how much that mission and execution of it really is the number one thing that we do.
Kim, when you started at Qualfon as an 18-year-old, did you ever imagine that you would be a director, that you would be traveling to Guyana and the Philippines and Mexico and doing all the things that you're doing? Did you ever think of that first day that you started at Qualfon as an agent?
Oh my gosh, Jeremy, you made me smile over here. I never in my wildest dreams would have assumed that firstly, I would have been able to make the career and have the personal life that I do. But secondarily, I am a girl from the Pacific Northwest. Before moving into my journey with Qualfon, the furthest east I had been was Montana. Furthest south I had been was Oregon. Furthest north was Alaska. So now I've been to Guyana, I've been to the Philippines, I've been to Mexico, all throughout the U.S. And actually a huge bucket list item of mine was achieved for the first time because of my journey with Qualfon 2 years ago, where I was able to go to Jamaica the first time. And believe it or not to brag, I was able to go to Montego Bay, Jamaica, to an all-inclusive resort for a company summit or for my client summit. So not only, was it able to do it for work, but I was able to travel and check that bucket list item off at one of the coolest places I could have ever imagined.
That's awesome.
Kim, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story. I think it's super inspirational for anyone that listens to it. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was my absolute pleasure. Thanks so much, Marisol and Jeremy.
That was a lot of fun, Jeremy. And I'm so glad that we got a chance to interview her, and we have so many other interviews to share with our audience, and I can't wait for people to learn more about Qualfon and to learn more about our mission and everything that we do. Thank you so much for listening. You can now find us on all available podcasting platforms. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn, and we can't wait to hear from you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mission Qualfon. Remember, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Mission Qualfon.